The Soldiers of Ares, Chapter 30. They were on Highway 77, which connected Athens to Vulcan City. It was a busy route, and the roads got more crowded as the time passed. Their new ride seemed to be quite the attention grabber, and many heads turned to see it as they passed by. "I told that idiot not to make it so flashy," Achilles said, a little annoyed. As they rode, the scenery outside also began to change, and soon they had left the desert sands behind, and now the roads were traveling through grassy plains. Maximus saw this as a great improvement. It was nice to be surrounded by the greenery, and the decrease in heat was truly uplifting. They had already left Vulcan City long behind and would be entering Minerva by sundown, according to Achilles. But it was still a long way from the country's border to the capital city of Athens. "So where are we?" Mia asked after a few hours of travel. "Still in Vulcan, but in another couple of hours we should reach Minerva," Achilles said. "Well, it should be a much smoother trip than the one through the desert. The highway leads us directly to Athens, right? Plus we don't have to worry about supplies, and even if we did run out of something, there are still plenty of gas stations on the road," Rex said. "Don't relax just yet. The Martian soldiers are still on our tails. They didn't do anything in Vulcan because we were with Ajax, but I'm guessing they're already in Minerva waiting with an ambush," Achilles said. "Hold on, I thought it was impossible to get into Minerva. Isn't that why Mia's with us?" Edgar asked. "I think you're a bit confused, my boy," Daedalus said. It looked like it was time for his 15 minutes of clarity again. "I had forgotten it was time for you to wake while driving," Achilles said. "No worries, old friend," Daedalus said. "Now I believe our friend Hedger here has a doubt, so let me clarify. Getting into the country of Minerva is easy. There are dozens of official roads and many unofficial paths one can take to get in. It is quite a big country after all. But getting into its capital of Athens is another story." He looked around to see if everyone understood, like a teacher taking a class. The rest of them nodded to him. He continued, "The city of Athens is perhaps the most advanced city in the world, perhaps second only to Olympus itself. But Olympus is a blend of both magic and technology. If we were to look at this from a purely scientific point of view, Athens would surely emerge on top. Along with these advancements, Athens also acts as the strategic stronghold for its army. Needless to say, being such an important city, a powerful defense mechanism was needed for the city, and this duty was given to me. And thus I created the Aegis, a dome-like barrier that covered the entire city and is impenetrable to any form of attack. The dome is not only effective against attacks, but also acts as a shield from any form of detection, both magical and scientific. Even Hermes can't break into our communication networks due to this. The Aegis makes Athens one of the safest places in the world. A barrier that covered the entire city sounded like a very effective defense system, but barriers usually needed a large amount of energy to maintain. Maximus wondered what Athens used to sustain such a big one all the time. "Wait a second, if the barrier is impenetrable, how do people pass through?" Hedger asked. Well, there are 3 entrances into the barrier through the ground, 2 for civilian use and 1 for the military. And all 3 are very heavily guarded. But entering through the air is a different story. All the aircraft with permission to enter Athens are fitted with a device that lets them pass through the barrier freely. Also, each aircraft has to transmit a passcode to the command tower in the city. This is to prevent people from entering by stealing one of our aircrafts. Even if they manage to do that, they won't be allowed to pass without the code. If the wrong code is given, the aircraft will be shot down by the large anti-aircraft guns within the city, Daedalus explained. "If the barrier is impenetrable, then won't the gunshots just be blocked by it?" Maximus asked. Daedalus seemed happy that he asked this question. "For that, let me explain how Aegis works. It stands for Attack-Enabled Giga-Ion Shield. It is called attack-enabled because unlike conventional barriers that merely act as an energy wall, the Aegis only blocks anything from entering it. This means that objects can exit it freely. This allows the shield to be active at all times, and there is no need to power it down to counterattack," he said. Maximus was amazed at this. It was the perfect defense strategy. No wonder every attack Mars had ever tried on Athens failed miserably. It really was the perfect defense. Daedalus was active for a few more minutes before he went off to his own world again, and soon night began to fall. Achilles took a side road out of the highway into a clearing. They decided to spend the night there. They opened up their supply crates for food. There were some grilled chicken sandwiches in there, which they decided to have for dinner. Mia took a can of baked beans instead. They all sat around the truck and reviewed their plan. "I expected to cross the border before tonight, but it seems we'll have to wait till morning," Achilles said. "But once inside Minerva, it's still a 4 to 5 day journey to Athens." Maximus wished that there was a faster way. He really didn't like traveling while a battalion along with Mars's champion were chasing them. "Once we cross the border, we have to be more careful." I personally know they can get into Minerva without much trouble, and chances are they won't be even expecting any Martian soldiers here, since we are nowhere near the front line, Rex said. He was right. The front line where the war was going on was towards the north of Minerva while they were entering through the far west. The capital city of Athens was somewhere in the center. Achilles nodded and said, "Yes, and about that, what can you tell me about the champion?" "You mean Diomedes?" "Well, other than the fact that he's a scumbag, I heard he's real old school. He seems to be the type that sticks with ancient weapons, but personally I just think he's too stupid to understand technology. I heard he doesn't use cars either, and that he still rides around in a chariot. But the chariot is pulled by 4 monsters. They may look like normal horses, but don't be fooled. I heard they have a taste for human flesh, and I don't think they would mind some minotaur and sprite on the side either." This information sent a chill down Max's spine, like hearing something from a horror story, only this was real and chasing them. "Anything else?" Achilles asked. "Yeah, I've heard he uses a huge battle axe, and that he uses it to cut up his victims before feeding them to his horses," Rex said. Mia let out a low whistle, and Hedger said, "Those are some horses I definitely don't want to pat." Achilles nodded and said, "Hopefully we can slip past them somehow, but in case of a fight, Daedalus still gets top priority." Maximus was surprised when he heard this, and even more so when they all nodded in agreement. It was like they were working for Athens now. Although he had no sense of devotion to Ares or Mars anymore, Athens used to be their enemy, and Daedalus was one of their top advisors. But Maximus had to agree he felt more loyalty towards Daedalus and Achilles than he ever felt for Ares. He decided right there that his allegiance would lay with his friends and whoever he thought was just. Not to a tyrant like Ares, just because he was born in his kingdom. "So what do we do once we reach Athens?" Maximus asked, while thinking if they reached Athens to himself. "Well, we head to the Empress herself, and Mia, I know the person you have to meet. He's actually an old friend." Maximus didn't know what they were talking about, but he was sure it had something to do with her mark. "Achilles, I've been meaning to talk to you about that, but I don't think I can come to the castle." Achilles stared at him a bit confused. "Why not? If you're worried about being from Mars, there's no need for it. I will personally guarantee your safety." Maximus thought he knew why. Unlike him, Rex had been a warrior in the front line. He had probably killed a lot of Athena's soldiers as well. His insides must be a roller coaster just going into Athens. Rex shook his head and said, "It's not just that. The truth is, meeting the Empress puts me in a high risk of coming face to face with the guy who cut me in half." Everyone's eyes widened at this. Rex hadn't told anyone about how he got so badly injured, not even Maximus or Hedger. "You think the soldier who did this to you might be in Athena's castle?" Maximus asked. He shook his head again and said, "Actually, I'm kind of sure of it. He is Athena's champion after all." "Who's Athena's champion?" Mia asked. Maximus knew who it was, and he had heard tales of the sheer number of Mars's soldiers he had killed. He turned to Mia and said, "Theseus, the Minotaur Slayer." "You fought against Theseus," Hedger said in disbelief, "and you didn't think it would be something worth mentioning." Maximus couldn't believe it either. Someone like Theseus, or any champion for that matter, were not something regular soldiers tried to fight. "I don't understand. I was there when you came back with those injuries. But your battalion never came back, and a lot more should have ended up dead and injured if he was involved," Maximus said. "That might be because my battalion didn't face him. I went and challenged him myself," Rex said. Maximus was a bit impressed by this act, but more than that, he couldn't believe Rex was so stupid. After staring at him for a while, Hedger asked, "Why?" "Oh, come on, you know why. You know the story. You know why he's called the Minotaur Slayer. It all began with a Minotaur named Tor. He was the greatest Minotaur hero of all times and was the proud champion of an ancient king, Minos. Tor was unbeatable and the pride of Minotaurs around the world. But one day he had to face Theseus, and that was the day he died. This earned him the name Minotaur Slayer. Many Minotaurs challenged Theseus after this, and he killed them all, making his fame as the Slayer grow. Soon it became a legend, sort of like the ultimate quest among the Minotaur community to kill Theseus. But all of them failed. And it looked like Rex decided to try his luck at it as well, and failed miserably. "He took me out in a single blow, cut right through me. He probably thought I was dead, otherwise he would have finished the job," Rex said. "I have not met Theseus personally, but his reputation precedes him. It would have been suicidal to try and take him out yourself," Achilles said. Rex sighed and said, "Too bad I only figured that out after I had chunks of me removed, but you understand why I don't want to run into him again." No one knew what to say, and everyone finished their dinners silently. Finally, Achilles spoke. "Let us leave this discussion for when we reach Athens, shall we? And if you are truly that uncomfortable, you can skip meeting Athena." They decided to go to sleep after that, and Rex insisted on standing guard. Maximus lay on his bed, finally aware of what happened to his friend, and realized he couldn't blame him. He followed a dream which a lot of Minotaur warriors had. But the truth was, when you chase a dream, reality hits you back hard, which is why most people leave their dreams behind. After all, look at what happened to Rex when he tried. Maximus wondered if he was given a chance to chase a dream. Would he take it, or would he succumb to the fear of failing? Maximus woke the next morning a bit disappointed. He was hoping for a visit from the voice again, to ask it about what he meant by his lineage, but he had no luck. He did, however, sleep, like a log, and in the middle of all the madness surrounding him, that was something. It was his turn to drive today, but when he awoke, the truck was already moving, and Rex was at the wheel. It feels so good to be back on the wheel. I still got it, Rex said gleefully. Maximus was happy that he had got something to distract his whole Theseus episode. He knew he hated talking about his injury. Before, when he was in the army, he was one of the best warriors in the heavy weapons division. That fight had changed his life forever. From being a respected soldier, he had to turn into a lowly scavenger to make a living. Though he got brand new metallic parts now, Maximus knew that he would still prefer not to lose the originals in the first place. Well, you were up early, Max, Mia said. Only she and Rex were awake. The rest of them were still asleep, even Achilles, which was surprising. Don't tell me Achilles is still not up yet, he said. Actually, he just went to sleep. He took over the watch after me, Rex said. Maximus got up and took an apple from the crate and started munching on it. We passed the border, by the way, and now we're officially in Minerva. There was no trouble at the border either. Just a board that said, "Welcome to Minerva, the land of innovation," Rex said. Maximus nodded to this. Mia was staring at the ceiling and humming a tune. Finally, she stopped and said, "Who knew a road trip could be so boring? I thought you said you were a traveler. Shouldn't you be used to all this?" Maximus asked. "Yeah, well, usually I got to worry so much about reaching somewhere without running into trouble that I got no time to be bored," she said. Maximus sighed and said, "Next time we stop somewhere, I'll be sure to buy you a ball of yarn for entertainment. You're never going to let go of the cat thing, are you?" She said, "Oh, come on, how can you not see this? Rex backed me up here. Doesn't she remind you of a cat?" He said. Rex was still too happy to be driving to care. "What? Not really. But then again, all you humans look equally ugly to me," he said. "Oh, Rex, you say the sweetest thing," Mia said sarcastically. Maximus went ahead to watch the pastures and the passing cars. But around half an hour later, Mia started whining again. "By the gods, there has to be something to do. Max, let's play a game." Maximus looked at her like she was crazy. It was like dealing with a 3-year-old, he thought to himself. "Yeah, that's not going to happen ever," he said. "All right, then let's do something else. Like maybe tell me a story," she said. "I don't know any good stories, sorry," he said, annoyed. Mia thought for a moment and said, "You know the story about the Trojan War, right? Just tell me that." "What, you don't know what happened in the Trojan War?" Maximus asked, surprised. It was probably the most famous tale in the world. How could anyone not know it? "Hey, don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I know the basic story, okay? But I never really liked history much, so a lot of the details are a bit fuzzy. But I guess it wouldn't hurt to know it now, especially since meeting a few of the living legends from it," she said. "You might as well tell her, Max. It's not like you got anything better to do," Rex said. "Besides, I don't think she's going to shut up till you do." Maximus sighed. He knew Rex had a point. So he sat down on his bed and began to tell the tale of the Trojan War. This has been a chapter from Book 1 of the new World Odyssey series, The Soldiers of Ares. Links to the books in the bio. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next chapter.